Today, I'm going to be taking Pro Q4 and I'm going to be emulating some of my favorite analog gear. I'm going to try to emulate an API, a Neve, and an SSL-Style preamp. And I'm going to find a way to integrate their individual sonic characters. And then hopefully I can take Pro Q4 and I can at least emulate parts of that sound in order to make my own virtual console. Let's just get into it. First thing I'm gonna do is kind of just get some background information. I'm gonna use ChatGPT. And what I'm doing with ChatGPT here is simply getting the framework of what to expect. If you need to explain to an audio enthusiast what the sonic character of an API 3124 Plus is, how would you describe the sound? Without being technical, you would need to explain the overall sound from low end to high end, the amount of punch or smoothness, and the overall tone, whether it's dark, bright, or warm. Then, if possible, include the hardware's ability to create a stereo effect, such as widening, saturation, narrowing, or tame ability, which I don't even know if that's a word or not. Let's just spit this off for API. Sure, the API 3124 has a very distinct sound that's punchy and forward. In mono, you'll notice it gives you a big, focused low end with a nice tight punch. The mids are clear and present, but not too aggressive. There's a certain warmth to it, without sounding too smooth or mellow. The high end is crisp, but not harsh, with a bit of airiness to it that cuts through without being too bright. Okay, that was a lot of contradicting, but I'll try to dissect that a little further. In linked stereo, you can get that punchy, bold sound, but it can give you a sense of width as long as the tracks are spread across stereo field, okay? It doesn't exaggerate or get too wide, but it can definitely give your mix some extra space and openness. And I'm literally going to paste everything that I just said into my text document here, which I'm going to name accordingly. Let's do the same for Neve. Let's see here, the 1073 series. Let's look at what the 1073 does. Okay, with the Neve, I think I'll just go with the regular 1073. The Neve 1073 has a very different vibe compared to the API 3124 Plus, with a bit more of a smooth, rich character. In mono, the low end feels rounded and full, but not as punchy or tight as the API. More like a deep, warm foundation. The mids are incredibly smooth, almost silky, and they really help bring out the body and presence of instruments or vocals without feeling too forward. The highs are slightly more mellow than the APIs, but still clear with a bit of sweetness that doesn't feel harsh or piercing. It's more about warmth and depth, helping everything sit together in a really nice cohesive way. So overall, the Neve 1073 is warm, smooth, and slightly rounded in the low end. Now I'm going to do SSL. And SSL is the one I actually know the least about, but I've also heard SSL more than I've heard the others. So I'm putting in here, I wanted to spit out the SSL-Style channel strip or 4000 series console. Okay, this is the one that's going to be the hardest, I assume. Now for the SSL-Style channel strip or the SSL-4000 series as a whole, it has a very distinct, precise character, clean, punchy, and a bit more modern sounding than the previous two. In mono, the low end is tight, controlled, and quite punchy, but it doesn't have the deep, round warmth of the Neve or the raw punch of the API. Things like vocals and guitars really pop in the mix without sounding overly harsh or bright. The high end is clean and crisp, but not too sparkling. It's more about clarity and precision. In linked stereo, the SSL-4000 series does a great job of maintaining tightness and focus across the stereo field, but you'll also notice that everything has a bit more punch and cohesion. Okay, excellent. Now I need to hear some kind of example for these. All right, buddy boy, let's speed this up a little bit. All I did was watch example videos and take notes. I've got a project set up here, and what I'm going to do is create about 12 to 24 individual presets that have very, very slight variations. And how I'm pretty much going to do this is I'm just going to run these three channels here into one group bus, VC test. So we'll call it VC test for virtual console. Let's just get into this. And I'm going to start with a pretty heavy part here. Let's see. On my notes, I've got my slight cut at 40 Hertz. I'm actually going to start with that. So go 40, and this dB per octave, I want it to be as minimal as possible. So if it does 6, can I do even less than 6? Can I do like 4? I can. You know what? We're going to go subtle for the SSL, because why not? Okay, definitely the 40 at 2 dB is better than doing the 30 hertz with a 6 dB. Let's just do this. Let's pull this up. Let's go about here, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Instead of stereo, we're gonna go mid. So we're only going to do a plus like 1 dB. I mean, a very slight change. The next thing I have here is there's an 8K bump, but roll off the super highs. So what I might do here is see if a shelf with a super high Q can get this done. So let's go -1, and we're going to put this about, let's see here. I'm going to take this and move it over just a touch. That. And see how this affects things. I actually don't hear that much of a change with it, so that's pretty good. I got a 1K bump, which I think it's going to be more like between 1 and 2. I don't think it's going to be exactly 1. Yeah, that 12.7 is good. I'm actually going to do exactly what I said I was going to do. And I'm going to take this band and turn it into a side cut. So here's the sides. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to cut the sides a little bit around here, 200. I have now saved this as my starting point for my SSL virtual console. Let's move on to what we're going to call our Neve. And this one's probably going to be the most extreme of the two things. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have like a pretty high Q to do what I'm talking about. Let's go with what we're hearing already. And I have here that it's just rich. I didn't really put where I hear it. So I'm going to find a place that's more rich than it is super duper punchy. Okay, I'm going to start with this point here, around this like 500 mark, and I'm actually going to use another shelf to kind of tame how it's affecting everything. So I can kind of like pull it back, reel it in, you know? That's crazy how much that does. And the other thing I have here is the high ends have a shelf energy at like 10K. So let's do that too. So let's put up the shelf here. I'm actually going to go to 10K. See that dip that's in there now? And it's honestly getting pretty extreme. We're getting about, what is that, +2 right there? So if I need to widen things a little bit, then the way I'm going to widen them is I'm going to take out some mids and like the punchy range here. So I think about here would be good. And I'm going to take the mids of that punchy range and I'm going to pull them down like this. Yeah. Okay, And then I'm going to smooth out this range here. I'm actually going to pair this to another track now. Let's go to this one. Okay, so this node now, I'm switching to the left side. And then I'm going to have a right side node that's doing pretty much the same thing. But it should give the stereo width that I'm looking for here. There isn't that much widening happening. So if I'm making 12 or 24 of these presets, it should alternate how the left and right sides are treated. I think that would make for a pretty good like swap to the next preset. And oh, this one sounds wider for this. Oh, the next one sounds wider than that. I want a more developed low end that I'm getting here. Just a little more. So I'm thinking about going around like 80 hertz or so. And I'm just gonna give just the slightest bump possible. So actually 48 sounds really good there. Really good. I'm going to save this one here. Okay, so this one's going to be a lot of trying to get depth out of what's happening with the API, but it's going to be punchy at the same time. And I feel like the API is going to be the hardest one for me to like mimic without actually being able to A/B the real deal for an API. So I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to start with this punchy mid-range. I'm just going to give it a boost, and we'll do 700. Start with that. What I also know is going to happen, the highs are nearly untouched. There's possibly a small bump at 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to toy with this a little bit. I'm going to go to the 5K like I have here in my notes. And that 5K is going to be split between the left and the right side. So on this one, that boost is going to be on the right. So man, the saturation doesn't need to be on for the Neve for some reason. I know it made it aggressive, and I'm now hearing it on the API. I can tell it's adding aggression, and that Neve is just not that. Whether it saturates the signal or not, like in real life, that saturation is not the same here, and I don't think it's necessary. I now need to make the punchy low, so around 100 here, because it's super punchy frequency. And this is going to be a mid-forward bump. By the way, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video. It did take quite a bit of time to put this together, so I would just appreciate you helping me out. Thank you so much. Let me compare this to this track here. Yeah, okay. I'm going to actually boost a little bit of the sides here and see what that's like above the mids. So I have here add width in the mid-range. And so I'm going to just add something to this mid-range here. Just so we're clear, adding mid and side adjustments doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make things wide, because of what mid and side really means. And without going into too much detail, the mid is what is the same between the two sides. So essentially it's like a mono sum. And then the sides are, they say what's different, dissimilar from the two sides, but really it's a left side and an out of phase right side. So whatever is the same in the middle gets cut out, and you're just hearing two things that are completely separate. They're not the same in the center. little bit of slop and this boxiness here that's kind of ruining the punch that it's supposed to have. I say right there. I'm actually going to take the mids and pull those down to a cut. Okay, the high end is not that harsh, so I'm actually going to cut that. It's a pretty good cut. I'm actually going to bypass that mid cut there, and I'm going to make a side one instead and cut it like this. Because if I turn it up, now the punch is gone. And if I turn it all the way down, that's punchy as shit. Okay, so I've set up this track to just play through, and it's going to pass the API, then to the Neve, then to the SSL. And we're going to hear the sonic difference of them. That's cool. Let's go ahead and start making individualized tweaks in order to create multiple instances of this. So with more presets that are all slightly different than the last, we'll create a variation like you would get from using like a mix console. There are minute differences in every one of those channels to where some of that perceived wideness you get from using the analog gear is just those subtle differences adding up. So if I can make like 24 different variations of the API right here, for instance, then if I had 24 tracks and they all had they each had a different preset of the API, it should theoretically mimic what would happen if you had a console. What I've done here is I have opened a mix, and instead of putting, Pro Q4 on every channel, I've instead put it on these subgroups. So first is without. Now with. See how punchy that sounds? That's so punchy compared to the first time. Very subtle. But now the cool thing. So now I'm going to change each one of these presets so that they are different. So let me make sure I can get this in here. So special 1, this one's on special 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's awesome. That's awesome. That is sweet. And the coolest part is that I just have these in ascending order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can take the drums here. Let's say I don't like how these drums aren't punchy anymore, right? Let me solo just the drums, right? And if I play this, let's say I like 12 it's still different from the rest of these. Now, to save time, I'm going to go ahead and just play these parts all the way through with the different console types. So this is going to be the SSL, then I'll do the API, the Neve, and then my special. There's my virtual console presets. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe. I'm here trying to fuel the passion for the audio making experience. Come along the journey with me, since I like to do really weird, quirky stuff like this. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next Drastic Truth experience. Microplastic in there. I don't know what the fuck that was.